The panel on e-publishing in India. It is moderated, chaired by K. Satyanarayan. With the publishing industry facing disruption due to rapid changes in technology, the session on e-publishing has also been a regular at Publishing Next. Speakers on this panel discuss the progress of e-books and other forms of electronic publishing in India and whether they have been able to meet the promise of making books accessible to the reader. The panel will discuss innovations, new business models, and the acceptance of e-books among readers. Pricing and rights management and the distribution and retail of e-books will also be discussed. The panel members here today are Ananth Padmanabhan, Karthika V.k, K.Srinivas, and Vivek R. Satya, over to you.
Okay, last session of the day, last session of the conference. So all of you must be quite sapped. So I hope we can keep you engaged, and I hope you will keep us on our toes. Okay, to kick off the panel, let me just quickly introduce the panelists. So on my far right, I have Ananth Padmanabhan. So he joined Penguin Books in 1997 as a sales representative for South India and is currently Senior Vice President in the management team at Penguin Random House. During the course of his career with Penguin, besides managing sales and distribution for Penguin's portfolio of publishers, he oversaw the development of Penguin India's first website, its mobile application, and its unique distribution MIS, the Advantage program. He is responsible for Penguin Random House India's digital strategy, including publishing, distribution, and sales of digital properties globally across channels and partners. To my right, immediate right, I have Srini. K.Srinivas is the Director of Digital Products and Services based in Pearson Education's New Delhi office, where he is business head for the digital products and services business that includes e-books, e-learning, online and blended distance learning programs, and managed services and platform solutions like LMS, CMS, SIS, and educational ERP, all of which he will tell us what they mean, I suppose. A long sentence at that, yeah. His role includes strategy, product development, marketing, distribution, sales, and business development for the Indian subcontinent, including India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and Maldives. Another long sentence with a lot of things. Okay, to my immediate left, we have Karthika, and we should give her a special thanks because this is her third panel. She's been kind enough to agree to be here. So I think she's probably been introduced twice, so she says we'll skip her. So I'll take the liberty of doing that. And on my far left, we have Vivek. Vivek heads the business development team for Trade Books and Flipkart that manages a portfolio of over 500 business partners in India, UK, and the US. He works closely with publishers to offer customers a wide selection and great service, and is passionate about forging business relationships that could help advance the shopping and reading experience for customers. As a leader in the books and electronics category, Flipkart has taken a lead in the development of the e-books market. With that out of the way, let's get down to business. This is a panel that we had last year too. How many of you were here at the panel last year? Okay, so just about 3 or 4. Okay, so there are a lot of new people here. Okay, so there's been a lot of change in the ebook space over the last 1 year, and we are looking forward to hearing about it from this fairly weighty panel. Before I start off, I just want to ask, does anybody here believe ebooks is just hype and there is no substance to it? Or is everybody convinced that ebooks are here for real and it's just a matter of time? Anybody who believes it's just hype? No. Okay, so we are preaching to the converted in a sense. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, the first thing that I want to ask the panelists is their view of what is actually limiting the growth of ebooks in India today. So we've been talking about ebooks, and everybody has been saying, there's a huge opportunity, huge potential for ebook sales in India, and especially given the fact that in India we've had lots of problems with print. So some of the people have been talking about E as the panacea for all of that, and but things are moving fairly slowly. We still see that there is some light at the end of the tunnel, but we are getting there slowly. So what is limiting the growth of ebooks in India? On both the demand side and the supply side. So on the demand, when I say the demand side, I'm talking about are readers not really interested in reading on screens, or are they sort of not interested in reading, period? That's another bigger problem, meta problem, not part of the scope of this panel. But are they having other problems in terms of not affording it and so on? And on the supply side, is it because readers don't have devices, they don't have good internet access yet, or they're not really aware of the fact that books are available? Books are not being made available by the publishers. So is that all part of this problem set that we have for constraining the growth of ebooks? So I'll start off by asking Ananth to tell us a bit about what he thinks about this.
I think it's about setting your expectations on what this growth is or not. So over the last 3 years at least, we've grown 5x on the number of ebooks that we've sold into the market. We are constrained by catalog size. We are constrained by customer knowledge of the format. Customers still order an ebook because it is cheap and return it because the book didn't get delivered physically. They didn't know they ordered an electronic version. We are constrained by technology in terms of internet, the adaptation of a tablet to read. Everybody thought that technology adoption in India meant that smartphones will bring more faces to screen, so to speak. But I think it's increasing the divide between how often you can get yourself distracted. Is the tablet making you read, or is the tablet actually making you consume internet more? So even regular readers are falling off and spending more time offline on other products, so to speak. But there is a lot of growth, at least on our side of the business that I know. It's going to expectations. It will only go up from here. It's because we don't know what the customer is doing. We don't know how to escalate it and make it work like we know on the print side.
Let me just turn to Vivek and ask him for his views from the retail side of things.
I actually agree with Ananth that we've seen a lot of growth in ebooks. Especially for us, it's been in the last 1 year that we've grown tremendously in ebooks. And we've seen that growth across genres. We've seen that growth across the publishers we work with. So it's not even as if it's so it's a consistent phenomenon. There's a demand out there for ebooks. Now, as Ananth pointed out, there are many constraints. So one of the biggest ones on the supply side is that the selection on ebooks is not equivalent to what we have on ebooks. So on printed books today, for example, Flipkart offers 12 million catalog selection. On the other hand, ebooks is 5% of that. So naturally, a voracious reader wouldn't find that appealing. So while conceptually ebooks allows you to have a huge library in your pocket, today the supply constraint doesn't necessarily let you realize a dream. Apart from that, as you all very well understand, on the P side in India today, still consumers are very oriented towards use of COD, the cash and delivery model, when they purchase books. And as people are not very first of all, the penetration of credit cards in India is very low, which means that people are not comfortable, and those who have cards are also not very comfortable using the cards. So payment enablement is another key constraint which has limited the growth of ebooks. On the supply side, these are like two big factors which I think we need to solve for. Apart from this, on the demand side, while people are getting used to it, and with more and more young people adopting ebooks, there are still certain misconceptions about what an ebook is. We've seen that the awareness of ebooks has increased a lot. It's increased there are various surveys which put the numbers anywhere between 60 to 75% of the people are aware of of readers are aware of what an ebook is. However, the experience of an ebook that a typical a customer has in mind is that of a PDF which is available on the net for free for pirated versions, right? So which is not necessarily the experience that we are trying to offer the customers when we talk about the ebook experience rendered through either our apps or the web reader. which that is also something which has adversely affected the image of ebooks, which is a demand side constraint we see. So as people get to use more ebooks, as they get to induce to adopt more ebooks, they learn that the experience is much better. And then we see a lot of customers converting to looking at ebooks as well, apart from ebooks.
Now, Srini, your segment of ebooks is very different from the segments that Ananth and Vivek have talked about, right? So your focus is on higher education books. How's the scene there in higher education books?
The perspective we kind of take in terms of higher education textbooks is, as you mentioned, very different from how trade publishing and a lot of other aspects, or if it's high-end reference works. Fundamentally, I'd like to be a little blunt. Education textbooks, off the shelf, nobody will buy. The only way anybody will buy a textbook is because without reading it, he will either not pass the exam, or because the university mandated it as part of the curriculum, or in a school system, the school bought it and distributed it to the students. So if you look at our matrix or our approach to the whole market, we typically characterize it by sort of three channels. We call it B2L, which is the library business. Then we have B2B, which is adoption driven, and the B2C. And the B2C through channels like Flipkart and Amazon is probably less than 5% of our overall business mix. Now, overall, the business of ebooks has probably grown more than 10 to 15 fold in less than 24 months for us. And currently it's at about 15% of our overall higher ed, books business. And that's, just looking at, the speed of growth, it's very encouraging. But as Ananth rightly mentioned, one needs to be conscious of what you should have as expectations. In our context, what limits usage of ebooks is really not some of the constraints that typically plague the B2C consumption environment. Ours is more about mindset among faculty, because unless a student looks at faculty in the classroom using a particular way of teaching, engaging with the sort of educational medium on his own, simply because of his interest, you're going to see very few people who are going to be self-motivated to try a very different sort of experience in terms of engaging with that type of content. Where we see a particular tick in terms of how that's really growing is where there is a huge overlay of over-the-counter sale, which is typically in the competitive exam space. So you see a lot of people who buy a little bit of add-on on top of what they would go in a FitG or a Time, wherever they go take their programs, and then say, you know what, I'd like another book for me to read, and maybe I don't want to carry a physical book, so I might possibly carry a supplement, by buying it over the counter. And again, my perspective is price. The way it's dramatized, I think, is a little bit of overkill. I think books have a value, and our philosophy is to sort of maintain parity, print equal to E, and that's what we've been doing so far. In fact, it's much higher in the library model because of the convenience that it gives. But I guess that's more tactical, and it doesn't answer your question in terms of, So for me, it's more about the attitude of faculty, getting used to that as a medium. And I think what increasingly we are seeing in the sort of ecosystem is pressure from the students, because they are cool with the tabs and the smartphones. And there's sort of a pressure on the faculty to say, hey, why are you using the same dumb print book? Why can't you use something like this, throw pop quizzes this way? Why can't you make it a little more engaging in that manner?
So what do you think needs to be done to help crack this problem? Is there something that you as a publisher could do, or anybody else, maybe the government or something like that, or the educational authorities mandating something?
I'm a firm believer where driving it with a stick is not going to drive much of this. So the way we typically operate is work with every component in the ecosystem. So we have conversations with telecom operators to say, and the likes of Newshunt and stuff to say, if payment in the B2C environment is a challenge, how do you overcome it? By doing stuff like, sell by chapters, sell in smaller subscription periods. So we have all of these experimental projects that keep going on and that are live right now, but obviously these are not to scale. The other thing that we do is typically partner with other components in the ecosystem, like the device manufacturers, the operating system players, the aggregators, and see how can this sort of be part of their broader play. I don't know how many people saw or have seen the Microsoft ad. If you see, he's doodling with the Microsoft new operating system, and then you see a Pearson logo. So it's all, how subtly you message saying that learning can happen through tablets, and how you can be part of that ecosystem. You will see more such plays coming out. I don't know. There was someone who from HP who presented, but we work very closely with another division of HP which pushes personal devices, and there we had a huge launch which was covered widely in the press earlier this year, where we sort of pre-bundled a lot of our technology and products and campaigned exclusively into engineering and management institutions, and these kinds of, and we've had good wins. It's not like there are no converts. I don't know how many are aware of the SRM group. It took a while, about 60 days of back and forth, but then, we did manage cracking our first account by selling about 1,500 tablets loaded with our content. This is all something that we couldn't have thought of, 18 months back, as can this even exist? So we are learning along the way. The solutions and the environment is not, robust enough like the print system. So there is still learning from a technology, from a DRM, from a deployment, from a pricing, and how all of this ecosystem sort of fits together. But I think it's coming along at a fast clip.
Okay, thanks, Srini. I'd like to turn to you, Karthika, to find out how many of your books are available as ebooks now, because both Vivek and Ananth were talking about limited catalog being available right now.
So we make every physical book that we do has an ebook counterpart to it.
Every front list title.
Every front list, and the back list is also already digitized. Only rights management is causing whatever. In some cases, like in the old days, you didn't have contracts that included ebook rights. So you have to go back to every single writer and ask for rights again, get them to understand that the percentages we're offering are fair, they're standard. And so all of that negotiation has to happen. And then bit by bit, the backlist is also almost ready now, digitized. So that is happening. So every time a physical book is in the market, you've also got the option of buying an ebook. But my understanding of it after working on this for a year or so, of figuring out how to make this work, is that I think the ebook market will come not from the edition of the physical book, because at this point in India you can buy a physical book really cheaply. It's not as though there's a big difference in pricing between ebook and physical book. It's not that difficult to find a physical book. There's these guys out here who make it very easy wherever you are in the country to buy it. So why would you choose to buy an ebook over a physical book when we are still in that frame of mind where we are happy enough reading in my kind of business, which is trade, where a physical book is still attractive to a lot of readers, where the reader of literary fiction still likes the feel, the tactility of the book and so on. So my feeling is, if we have to make this really work as a business, the content has to be shaped for those who want to read in an e-format. So the content, that there are perhaps certain kinds of formats that work better. Maybe it's self-help, maybe it's business, maybe it's poetry. But we have to come to this understanding of what works better, what do readers really want. I think there's a seeding time here that will be very essential to creating content that works best on e-formats, and then plan that better, get perhaps completely different word lengths onto this, get very different design and reading abilities onto it. So there is a lot of work still involved in this. So it is going to be a while before we can say, this is what works in that format and this is where we're going to go. But I think it would be a mistake to simply look at conversion of physical to e.
So have you been looking at creating certain titles specifically for E?
Yes, in fact, last year we launched an imprint called Harper 21. And that was essentially an e-platform, and we thought we'd use it for experimenting a little bit. So we started with, say, 21 stories, 21 poetry collections, 21 essays that were topical. So we tried to put that out and see what the reaction was. And it was great. I mean, there were people downloading it all over the world. It was very cheaply priced. It was 21 rupees a download. And it was really 3,000 words or 5,000 words. But it was a way of getting in there and seeing what the world is going to think about it. And it was very, very positive. So as of now, we're planning an whole imprint that will be only e-content. It may not become physical books at all. If it comes to that, that something really hits popularity on the e-format and we feel like there's a reason to print it, then we might. Otherwise, it will stay as an e-book only. So we have a commissioning editor who's looking at that content seriously. We've got a whole sort of plan in process there.
Okay. Now, you talked about contracts. Now, all your frontlist contracts have ebooks built into them, I guess, right? Yeah. Now, what are the typical royalties you offer your authors for including ebook rights?
It says very clearly there that as the industry standards change, we will go back and renegotiate them as it happens. But at the moment, it's roughly 25% that the author gets.
25% of the list
of whatever we get, yeah.
Of whatever you get. Yeah. Okay. And this is the same thing that you're going back and renegotiating with all your backlist authors too?
Yes, because it's an absolute international standard that we've kept to. It's very confusing to start making differentiations there at this stage.
Okay. Okay. Now, one of the things that, is something that was talked about earlier in the morning also was that given the fact that we are looking at digital content, the first thing, as you said, most people have tried to take the print book to the ebook. Now, digital content allows you to do a lot more in terms of, text and multimedia and interactivity and all of that. So, has there been any thought on creating those kinds of content, taking the full potential of ebooks into account?
Yes, I think it will have to be in certain kinds of readership. I mean, I don't see readers of serious literary fiction wanting to be interrupted by little audio or videos popping up. At the same time, a children's book, I imagine it'd be great if you could get it to be interactive, put a little game in there, all of that. It is expensive at this stage. We're finding that it's not going to be that easy to convert into these formats, apart from time and understanding of what is required. It is so expensive that it's going to take the price up. And then we're stuck with that problem of having such a high-priced book that nobody really wants to download it. So it's going to take, it's going to take a while.
Okay. Srini, what about higher education books, interactivity in higher education books and using the full potential of digital multimedia?
See, using interactivity and media for especially from a higher education context is not new. I remember way back, about 8 years back, we had stuff like forget the name, Bioflix, where stuff that became part of Campbell biology series, and so it's been there for a while. But some of the decisions that we take are really data driven. So when we looked at how the experience is and what people are really using when we threw 20 types of media, time and again there was only one thing that came back. While these are nice to have, what really drives traffic and what people find value is only assessments. You can give, you can embellish it, you can pepper it, but in a college environment, you got to be realistic about what really motivates him to come to a class or attend an educational system. So for us, assessments as a component is far more important, not to dilute that video, imagery and other forms of interactivity are not important, but in the relative scheme of things, it's really assessments that drives. So the other challenge we face is the file formats and delivery mechanisms. We, at any given point, at least within the Pearson scheme of things, there are 15 projects in terms of evaluating best ways of mixing these together. Maybe you can look up, there's a project called Pearson Revel. If you can, and there's something called Project Blue Sky, Pearson Blue Sky. So these are One is pre-built concoction to say, this is a serial way in which the narrative goes, and then here are pre-built sections where you're going to put your content. Then in the blue sky scheme of things, you have assets based on topics which any faculty can walk in and weave on the fly the way he wants to present his entire book, including OER content. And there are diverse mechanisms, but currently our belief is nothing as a proven model has gone to scale. So we don't want to invest too much. At the same time, that's not stopping us from experimenting.
So what you're saying is essentially that there is no demand for this kind of stuff, for interactive stuff. They are only looking at getting the bare minimum to pass their exams. So
for the large majority
of them. Okay.
I'm not trying to generalize that every single person is that way.
Of course. Okay. Now, Vivek, what fraction of the titles, ebook titles that you have on your platform right now are capable of exploiting the full digital multimedia potential, or are most of them just plain text-based ebooks?
So today, most of the titles we have are plain text ebooks. It's also a function of the file format, right? So currently, we all the books have been rendered in a EPUB 2.1 format, which doesn't necessarily permit use of all the features.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the EPUB 3.0 format where you can actually leverage part of these features.
Mm-hmm.
And as Karthika pointed out, it'll be very relevant for children's category, for example. But today the selection available in that category, it's also very negligible. So most of the selection today is in the YA and adult section, where it probably isn't as relevant.
So do you see that as an important aspect of trying to get more people to come and buy, having more such books, or do you think that that's a little while away, as Karthika and Srini both have said?
This is a tricky question because online in general has been relatively not seen as a destination for children's books. So children's books are still predominantly bought offline. So having said that, we do look at this as an opportunity to render a different experience for children's books, but whether it's the time to make those investments today, or is it too early? That's the question in both publishers' mind as well as in our mind. But yeah, if I go by experiences from abroad,
Mm-hmm.
Not the Western markets, but other Asian markets. So it was very interesting to see recently in the Malaysian market that I attended a conference in Malaysia where they were talking about how the downloads for children's books increased 7x when they put up EPUB 3s as opposed to EPUB 2 formats.
Mm-hmm.
So which actually showed the kind of potential it has. Now, of course, this is purely from a demand perspective.
This happened in which countries?
Malaysia.
Okay.
Malaysia specifically.
Okay. That's interesting. So at least that's one data point where it seems to have helped drive up offtake.
And the insight for them, the company who was specializing in this, was that unlike the Western markets, we Asians are also prone to, we like the audiovisual appeal, and we are very colorful in general, right? So they believe that this is a huge potential, and they've seen that work in that market. Now, the question is, are we there yet?
Okay, thanks. Okay, Ananth, coming back to you, could you tell us a bit about Penguin's ebook business? What fraction of your sales are ebooks today? And a little bit more about how the growth has shaped up.
We have a 2,000 title catalog, mm-hmm. and the fundamentals are same, that everything that we own a copyright or a right for will be available in the digital format.
Mm-hmm. Is it available immediately at the same time as a print book?
Yes, we simultaneously publish, mm-hmm. rights permitting, or if there's an embargo involved.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, the ebook actually goes on sale on the dot, because it's easy to put a book on sale electronically than on print version. So it sometimes goes on sale early.
Mm-hmm.
So it's around the world, metadata accurate. We do that.
Okay.
Our understanding is this: in that we don't know the consumer, we don't know what he wants to buy, where, using what device, when. It's a convenient format. We don't have a print versus e-argument or anything like that. It is just that that's another format and has to be made available as and when customers want to consume it. But staying with that question about children or not, enhanced or not, so I'll give a simple example. When we looked at what can you potentially do if you have a seriously good content that we generate. At the end of the day, we generate very good content, whether they are stories or illustrated or whatever. We have this kick-ass book called Fish. It's the only fish cookbook of its kind in the world. So take that book as an example. Consider a family of a father, mother, and a child. This fish cookbook today electronically can be either ordered print, you can order a full ebook. You should be able to look up a recipe. You should be able to look up a recipe for a particular kind of fish in a particular kind of recipe style. You should be able to see it in a video and an audio format. You should be, and if your child's bugging you while you're cooking, you should flip the iPad over and let him or her play with the fish bowl while the cooking is being done. Change the color of the fish in the bowl. You should be able to interact with it in that if it's not working like you thought you should be able to interact with it saying, this is not what happens when I leave it on for 3 minutes. You should be able to lend that ebook or borrow or not lend. You should be able to subscribe to regular fish updates. And all we did in the beginning was produce a book of fish recipes. So the digital medium actually does a lot more or has the potential to touch a lot more people's lives and imagination than merely this is an ebook and then this is what we should price at. Those are very limiting tactical conversations. But as a publisher, the imagination is what will drive the digital explosion because people are using all kinds of stuff now. Mostly we don't. No. This is my high on the wish list book.
Yes.
Okay.
We've ticked 3 boxes. Okay. So you can buy it in print, you can buy it in you can buy an app of it. But that is possible.
So
what is not possible is everything that I've said comes with a cost.
So is this something in the pipeline or is this something
No,
just as a wish list?
DK's most award-winning book is the Human Body book, which sells for 180 pounds. It really will tell you, it will scare you about the things that can kill you, but you can't stop watching it. And that's what's possible in today's. Sometime today, somebody mentioned how publishers actually restrict ourselves to text. And the imagination is actually visual. Even to your own question about literary, right? So if Amitav Ghosh's Ibis trilogy is available as an ebook, so it will have the boat running in the lading. No. That is how you want to consume. If I want a 14-year-old now to actually get into the world of Amitav Ghosh, I have to do these things. He's not going to flip page after page. If Ghosh opens the book saying, this is what my imagination for Ibis trilogy is, and hear him in his own voice, that has nothing to do with the literary quality. It just helps you enhance that selling ability. Because we are not hand selling our product to the million customers. We are at best talking to editorial talks, to sales talks, to retail talks, to that one man who wants to hear.
So which countries do you actually sell most in today? Is it
half
India?
and half. Of the books that we originate, half our sales comes from India, half sales come rest of the world, and largely North America.
Okay. And what percentage is ebook sales out of your total sales?
9.
About 9%.
9%, yes.
Okay. And when you look at working with various retail platforms to sell the ebooks, do you talk to each of the platforms directly and do a contract with them and then give them the files directly?
No, because we are a large global company, we operate on a one world, one source model. So if one of the parent companies has a contract with a customer and we have kicked his tires, that's good enough.
Okay.
Because the consumer buys like that. Whether you're in Delhi or Dubai, you should be able to buy an ebook. You really don't worry who sold it to you.
Right.
It has to be priced to market, and that's how we keep the supply chain simple. Supply chain simple. It's a tongue twister. Simple.
So you would actually effectively be selling this title to your parent and then they would be hosting it on Amazon, or how does it work?
Correct.
Okay. Now, what about HarperCollins? How do you do that? Your ebook titles, do you list independently on?
Yeah, we do it independently. It's an India program run by our production team is in charge of it, and we do it here.
Okay. So you sign a separate contract with each of them and then give the files separately to each of them?
Yeah.
Do you see any advantage in trying to deal with a single point intermediary to whom you would give one file and then they would ensure that it's available in all these various platforms?
At the moment, I think we would prefer to be in control. And once we know exactly where we're going and how much because it's also small now, so we're still able to do this ourselves. But perhaps in the future we might need to require something like that.
Okay. Now coming to you, Vivek, on the same point. Now, there are lots of publishers that you want to deal with. Now, what are the things that you see as problems when you go and talk to a publisher from your side? I mean, I'm not talking about the problem from the publisher side yet. We'll get to that. So you were going and trying to persuade a publisher to list their ebooks on your platform. So how do you see the conversation going then?
So I'll need to answer this separately for the international part and the Indian part.
Do that.
So with the international publishers, of course, the big five who were here, they were the first ones to support us and come with us. But apart from that, there's a huge lot of international publishers who don't necessarily come through the big five. While they might be distributing the physical books through them, not necessarily the e-books. So in those conversations, the primary constraints we've faced is people being worried about the security of their files. People being unsure about the scale of the market and therefore whether it is the right time to put in the investment to integrate their files. There's a little bit of a setup cost initially when you're setting this up for us. So those were the primary two concerns. But over a period of time, we've been able to build that trust. So we have developed our own proprietary DRM. Which we've even invited hackers from USA to try and crack that, which they've not been able to do. So, and the fact that all the big publishers are already onboarded with us also means that there's a lot of faith reposed in our security capabilities. So that's been the biggest challenge. The second challenge after that has also been to price books for the Indian market, which is a big challenge because internationally, the way they look at it, they convert USD and pound pricing into Indian pricing, which doesn't work for the Indian market, right? So that's been a bigger challenge because this implies it's not as much a challenge in terms of conceptually getting an approval on it. The bigger challenge has been on implementation front to kind of get those pricing integrated with the data that they provide. So that's on the international part. Now with regional publishers, it's been a different story altogether.
When you say regional, you mean English publishers from India or
I'm actually
language publishers?
Yeah, so I'm talking about language publishers primarily and the small publishers and the relatively smaller English publishers or even Hindi language publishers. So we ourselves started focusing on that market relatively late. We started off quite late, but when we started discussing the concerns that surfaced were, to begin with, the number of books which they've converted or digitized itself is less, right? So, and even, and some of the publishers, they came to digital printing only a while back, which means even if you talk about basic PDFs, those are available only for let's say the last 2 to 3 years. The biggest question was, is it worth investing in digitization? So we then, we have also gone ahead and found digitization partners who can offer this service at preferential costs and make it viable. So that's the basic problem has been on digitization itself. The first frontier is that. Beyond that, people who've been, who've taken that leap of faith and come with us. The second issue here has been on the quality of the catalog data itself. So internationally, while everybody kind of offers data in the standard Onyx format, in India we've basically struggled to collect capture data in a relevant format. So we've used different templates, standard templates that we've developed, but it's still not at a level where it enables discovery and helps both publishers and us sell those books effectively.
Okay, so now looking at it from the publisher's point of view, now why should a publisher actually, a small publisher, actually look at ebooks today? Is there any money in it at all right now for them? I mean, if it's going to give me money maybe 3-4 years down the line, can I just wait till then and simply sit tight till then?
I would say it's all the more important for the smaller publishers, especially regional publishers, to look at ebooks today, because more or less the distribution of regional books is limited to a particular region, whereas your customers today are traveling a lot. They are everywhere. Ebooks is the best medium to reach out. So it's even more important for regional publishers today to invest in ebooks.
No, I can understand the fact that it's available everywhere and all that, but will I see money in 5 months, 6 months? Will I see money in 1 year? Will I see money in 2 years? Money as in something that maybe 5% of my print sales kind of a thing, at least.
So that's the number which we are doing with other publishers. So that is something you will immediately see, and the kind of growth we are seeing, it's a month-on-month growth. We don't even talk in terms of year-on-year. So with that kind of growth, we definitely expect ebooks to go to anywhere between 15 to 25% in 2 to 3 years. Okay. So there is a lot of and the longer you wait, and the more the selection that builds up, especially with online channels, and those who are familiar with online channels would understand that the earlier you come, the more your books will get searched and they'll have visibility. It automatically comes up. So people who join the bus early are the ones who are likely to make the most out of it. But that aside, even the fact that today I understand a lot of publishers are worried about whether to invest in conversions. So what we are considering doing, since we found this to be a consistent pattern across publishers, both regional and smaller Indian publishers, we have actually developed a reader which can also render PDFs with a near equivalent experience. It will never be equivalent to a EPUB experience, but with a very near equivalent experience.
But then when you zoom, you will still have the problem, right? That problem will remain.
So it will not, as I said, it will not be equivalent to a EPUB. There will be some fidelity loss, but it is much better. I mean, it's been enhanced.
But things will reflow.
Yes,
so you can even read on a small device.
You can, yes.
Okay.
So so we are developing that. So by end of October, we hope to have that in production across all readers, all apps, all major platforms, as well as web reader. The idea here is to, we still want publishers to render EPUBs because we want to give the best experience to customers. But the idea here is for the publishers to test it out through PDFs. You see if the demand is there, and if then you get convinced that yes, there is demand for this book, and it makes sense to convert and invest in the EPUB. Right.
Okay. So who are the language publishers that you have on your platform now? Could you give us some names?
So as I said, we've started to very late. So as of now, it's only we've only done Hindi publishers. So and that too, the list is very less. But so far we've been now we are working a lot with Bengali publishers. Soon we should have a fairly good selection in Bengali as well.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Now, Ananth, coming back to you. Now, when you sell your print books today, you have no idea who your customers are.
Yes.
Right? So there is a sort of intermediary layer or two between you and the end customer. But when you sell ebooks today, you could have a direct contact with your customer. How important is that for you? Do you see that as something that's important?
No, yeah, consumer insight is important, but it's even worse on the e-side because e-sellers don't tell us who bought the ebooks. So the assumption clearly is that for the same kind of customer who liked a certain product, there is a print life, an e-life, and a cannibalist life. So if you like a new Rushdie, you might, and you're traveling tomorrow, but you can't carry your print, you might buy the E and the P. But we don't get back enough consumer insight. The largest e-book sellers in the world don't tell you who bought their books and what the demographic is.
Yeah. Do you see that as a problem, as in you're shut out from information? They have all the information about customers, needs and behaviors and desires?
No. So that's where there are things that we tell ourselves is that what we've learned on the print side, we don't unlearn that just because E has happened. We didn't know it all along in print. So why should that scare us in terms of why are we not knowing what's happening in E? So yes, it's useful, but I think as a publisher we have to leverage the digital medium to get to know our customer better anyway. And there are various other ways you can do it.
The reason why I ask is Amazon itself is turning a publisher. Okay, so there are the platforms who could turn publishers themselves, in which case they have all the information about books that you have sold and they could be a competitor to you someday. So if a retail platform becomes your competitor, then wouldn't that be a threat to your business?
No. So they who shall not be named aside, competition can come from anywhere.
Right.
Nobody thought the iPod will kill the music industry. So I don't think anybody can become a publisher today. You and I can become a publisher. We can start a textbook business. It's not about who gets to publish what. And there is a myth about self-publishing and how people can do it better, and the diminishing role of an editor or whatever. If you go to any time an ebook seller says we have sold more ebooks than print, if you actually spend some time and go see the bestseller list, this will be, for lack of a better word, trashy, self-published fiction, non-fiction, whatever, which is often compared to curated publishing. Authors like Seth Godin, who said that, yes, I've got a brand, I don't see the role of a publisher anymore. He went to He Who Shall Not Be Named, published, had a terrible experience, because there are some things that a non-publisher will not do. He came back to Penguin. So, because they have a larger voice and because we hear about it more, we tend to react to it either faster or slower. But fact remains that there is great merit in the traditional model. It is the tactical advantages and disadvantages, because both the consumer, the publisher, and the service provider are still grappling with the potential on a daily basis. If Flipkart adds 200,000 customers a month, now how do you react to that? What do they want? How are they buying? What time of the night do they shop? We don't know those questions yet.
In India, actually, you have the opportunity to become a merchant on Flipkart and get customer data, right?
Sure.
Because they are now only a marketplace.
Sure.
So would that be...
But we are a publisher.
Okay,
I think we have to respect core competencies. What a retailer can do, by retailer I mean for Penguin is the first customer. What a customer can do, we can't do. And I think that's another I think that's merit in the thought that you don't compete with your customer, because your customer is just a channel. You still are publishing for that one guy who will wait for the next Chetan Bhagat or Amitabh Ghosh. We don't know who he's going to buy from. I don't think that one channel will ever sort of supersede content creation.
Okay.
At least now.
And if the customer decides to compete with you?
6 months later, I might say completely different things, by the way.
Yeah.
This
Fair
is
enough.
today.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's something that HarperCollins globally has already sort of thought about, since they have launched their own channel to distribute, to sell directly to consumers. They've also launched their own e-reader app. So does that have any implications for how you would operate in India?
Well, we are a global company. Thankfully, we are 100% HarperCollins in India as well, so we'll benefit entirely from what they're doing. And it's true that we are watching all the battles around us. There's plenty of battling going on. And people in the US and Harper seem to be very quick on this. They seem to be very sort of forward thinking on the e-platform. So they're working really hard to get other platforms in place to be able to be selling directly to the customer. And more importantly, as we said, I think it's really important that we get that data. Who is this person buying? Why are they buying? What are they buying? And it's not necessarily for the fact that that data itself is important, but I think in some ways it's also because somebody else has the data and you don't. And that is a problem. I mean, then someone else is leveraging that thing which you can't. So if there is a way in which you can access it yourself and leverage it yourself for benefiting your own writers and your own creative content, then why the hell not? So I think what we will end up doing is benefiting from Harper US's work, and we'll all be on the same page eventually.
Okay. Now, Flipkart has access to consumer data. Now, do you share that with publishers? Do you see that as something that you would do?
So the answer is no. The reason is that we ourselves haven't figured out how best to utilize our data, because we've grown at a pace at which frankly we've not been able to add the kind of support systems that we would have liked to add, invest in capabilities like analytics that we would have liked to add while we grew. So as we speak, we are actually investing in those capabilities, and very soon we should have the capabilities to share that kind of data. So it's not today, if we are not sharing that data, it's not for not wanting to share. It's not a principle at all. It's more just that we ourselves haven't figured out how to utilize that data effectively. But having said that, transaction data at a customer level is, of course, the IP of the retailer. That's a core competence. So that is something we'll obviously keep to ourselves. But what we would like to share, what we would love to share, is what are the trends what are the differential consumer insights we see in E vis-a-vis P, and how best we can work together, because we are partners in this business. So how best we can work together to leverage that.
Well, I want to add something here.
Yeah, sure.
There's one thing about publishing that is not comparable to other kinds of consumption, is that if you want to buy an HTC phone because you know that it is the cheapest and it does everything other smartphones do, HTC can go sell to a consumer and people will come to the HTC store. But the guy who consumes Amitav Ghosh consumes Jhumpa Lahiri and Salman Rushdie and will consume Hari Kunjru and Niall Ferguson and God knows who else.
Different publishers.
Imprints don't really matter.
Absolutely.
So the consumer is not, he is a multi-product, multi-brand consumer all at the same time. If he comes to the Penguin ebook store, he'll know he want a Penguin classic. But if he discovers we don't publish Chetan Bhagat, we don't publish Paulo Coelho, we don't publish Amish Tripathi, I can guarantee you, well, I'm saying, figure of speech. But he's not going to come back to you if constantly you go to a store, which is why there can't be a branded retail. Again, I'm saying the same thing. We shouldn't forget the traditional learnings of a print or traditional methodology because digital has happened.
Yeah, the convenience of
it's not like buying Levi's jeans.
Yeah.
It's not like you buy jeans stays with you for 1 year, but you will get over a book in about 3 days. And you can't go to the same store being told that this is not ours, this I don't have, this is somebody else's. You won't go there. Which is why publishers have to think very carefully, unlike in education where if they have a Balaguru Swami, there's only one. There's no consuming another Balaguru Swami. I don't understand competition education as much. But you can't identify it and say, okay, I'm connecting the dots and publishers can go sell and take on competition. Won't work.
Okay. When it comes to ebook pricing, how do you set the price of the ebook relative to the print book?
E is equal to P.
Okay.
And price to market.
Okay.
So illustratively, $14-15 in the US, £10-12 in the UK, Australian, Japan, blah, blah, blah. India, E is equal to P.
And if it's a US published book, it would be simply dollar converted to rupees here?
No, dollar converted to the equivalent P, if the P is available here. So if we have imported a US dollar book and is available on a shelf, the consumer should be able to see that the print version is available at X rupees, but I'd rather buy a E, and he should be paying the same price. At the moment, he is not. Okay. Mostly he is, but there are differences.
There are some titles for which I see that your ebook price is much lower than the print book price.
No,
about 20% lower?
Not ours. So at the publisher listed digital price, E is equal to P. The retailer might offer a differential pricing.
Okay. So the discount is coming from his side, not from...
No, we don't underprice. In fact, I'd like to overprice, but we don't underprice.
Okay. What about you, Karthika? Same thing. What do you do when you talk to a publisher? Do you look at a list price and agency model, or do you look at, you probably don't want that. You want the model of being able to discount it to whatever extent you want, right?
So it's not an agency model today. It's a pure retail model where we buy at a certain price and then we retain the flexibility of pricing it at the level that we want. So that's the model currently today.
In India, there's no agency model. Now, what do you do, Srini, in terms of pricing? How do you price your digital content?
So there's an India price. The US pricing is priced to their market. The Indian pricing is priced to the Indian market, and print equal to E. It's pretty much.
That's for individual sale, right? Now, when you go to institutions, would it simply be a sum of all the prices, individual prices of the books that you're offering them as a package, or would it be some kind of discount there because you're buying a lot in bulk?
Yeah. So bulk transactions are dealt in along the skews of how bulk transactions are handled, and they do get within the certain limit some extra flexibilities. But again, there are other ways in which we try to hook by saying, okay, if I gave you this, then can you guarantee me buying this for the next 3 years, or stuff like that.
Okay, so it's just a negotiation on that too.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, even language books are on the same model, right? So
similar model.
Do language publishers insist on control over pricing in any way?
Not in our experience.
Not in your experience. Okay. Okay, now I want to move on to something which is a very interesting business model that has taken off in other parts of the world. and look at the prospects for something like that in the Indian context, especially because we've had lots of problems in ebook offtake increasing, and one of the problems, of course, is that price is an issue. Okay, especially when E equals P, as both Ananth and Karthika have said, there is not really much of an advantage in buying an ebook relative to a print book. Now, about a year and a half ago, Scribd and Oyster launched a subscription business for books. So the way it works is that you pay, say, I think $9 a month or $10 a month, and you have access to a whole bunch of books. Okay, so they claim few million titles from a whole range of publishers, and HarperCollins and Simon & Schuster also have a lot of titles, about 10,000 HarperCollins titles and about few thousands of Simon & Schuster titles too. Now, that's a model where users now don't have to worry about whether they should buy a book or not once they have paid their subscription. So it's like a buffet model. So once you've walked in, you're free to eat what you want. You don't have to think about, oh, how much does that cost? Should I really order that? Will I be able to do justice to that? Will I be able to eat the whole thing and all that? So same thing works here. So you don't have to worry about the price. So you can experiment a lot more, and you don't have to worry about buyer's remorse after having bought a book and then found that it's crap and so on. So what do you think are the prospects for that in India, Ananth, for a service like that?
The library model in India doesn't work even in print.
Mm-hmm.
It's one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is to do with the way we consume books as a content, and the repetitive nature of that buying. For some strange reason, print library format haven't worked. The only comparable model is when you're charged a subscription fee for an SMS service where you actually paid 30. You don't even consume it unless somebody reminds you, and it keeps getting charged. So service providers of a subscription model make money. Our view is, in a highly fractured market, both demographically and by price, offering a subscription model that lets you pay a low price for a unknown quantum of consumption will deteriorate the market.
Will?
Deteriorate the market.
Mm-hmm.
It is because you already are working with a limited consumer base. And then to spoil them with the price promotion, and price is one thing that I completely hate. The whole argument that you drop price and volumes will increase, or we'll have to do this at this price, or whatever it is so unmathematical that it's not worth having conversation over. But subscription will work if you do different kinds of subscription, and it need not be book subscription.
Mm-hmm.
If you like your drink, you should be able to subscribe from a publisher for a new cocktail recipe. It can come on your phone. So what we're saying is you diversify, slice and dice how you sell your content.
So that would be direct to consumer then?
That will be direct to consumer.
Okay.
Because as a publisher, we cannot become a retailer yet.
Mm-hmm.
Structurally, government allowed. But if we are able to do that, you can sell content in a differential model. But can I read 10 books this year by paying for 2 kind of subscription model?
Okay. What would you say, Karthika, especially since HarperCollins seems
Well, I thought it was a really interesting initiative, and it isn't something that we have seen yet here, but there was a time when we were children when that ability and the openness of that thing of going to a lending library and taking what you liked was a way to enter that world. Mm-hmm. Of course, the world has moved on since then, and it's not like it's happening now very successfully, but I still think it'd be worth it to experiment with that and to say, if that is a way of entering, if people are going to gift each other subscriptions, for instance, you have to gift someone something, give them a subscription to this, and they will use it, and if they like it, they might stay with it. Mm-hmm. And very importantly, if I'm a library, or if I'm an institution, or if I'm a company, and I want to say, I want to get a lot of books available to a lot of people at one time, maybe I'll try the subscription model instead of going the individual route and picking or selecting on behalf of someone else. Mm-hmm. So maybe there are opportunities here that we could explore along with everything else. It's not as though that is going to swamp everything and mm-hmm. that's the only model left. Mm-hmm. And in language publishing, for instance, in Malayalam, subscription of books has allowed publishing to flourish for years and years.
Right.
You went up there and you said you want the book, and then they printed to order, and there was a whole process in place which allowed publishing to succeed. So maybe that is one other avenue to explore here before we already say it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts, Vivek, on this subscription model as a retailer?
So we are absolutely bullish on this model. And it's very encouraging to see how this model has at least been experimented with, and the fact that publishers have been open to it. Because I understand, I mean, we totally understand where the concern is coming from, and how in one way it could, I mean, there is a risk that it could deteriorate the market further. But the reason why we believe it is, it can be, there's a lot of potential for this model. Is first, I talked about payment enablement being a big concern for ebooks development in India. So subscription is one of the ways you can actually get around it, because you don't have to pay for each book. You subscribe to it, and then it's a way to induce people to become a more frequent reader.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the problems we've seen with ebooks is that the frequency of purchase is not as much.
Mm-hmm.
So there are multiple models you can do. So one model is what earlier was discussed about the telecom or the telecom billing, right? Carrier billing. So that's another model. But this is another model where it can be facilitated. However, what is important is to get the design right. So as we speak, we are also looking at multiple customer studies to see what is the ideal design for such a model, because we don't want to get into a situation where we deteriorate the market. So by that, what I mean is there are certain questions we need to answer on whether the model should allow for free access across the catalog. Should there be a specific set of a bouquet of books which should be made available? If so, what should be that bouquet? What should the plan look like? Can it be a one-size-fits-all model, or does it need to be a layered approach, like your telecom subscribers give you multiple plans, because different people have different appetite for reading.
Mm-hmm.
So getting the design right would be extremely critical to for this model to work well.
Okay. Now, one last question before I open it up for questions. What is your view about DRM from a point of view of a retailer? Do you think DRM should be there or not for books?
Today the market is still very small, right? So today with the market we have, I think DRM gives a lot of comfort to publishers to put their content out there. So I think today it's an enabler, it's a facilitator, and I think it's very important to have that as a capability for the market to develop. But going forward, it's too early to predict whether it'll still remain relevant.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What about you, Karthika? As a publisher, what's your view on DRM?
As he said, I think at this point, certainly it's required.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting world to speculate about, where every word is available to everyone and there's no monetary transaction on this, copyright is free. It seems very unrealistic to me. I as someone who works with creative content, I think people spend a lot of individual creative time on something. I think it needs to be managed for their benefit as well, not just because you have the right to read anything or take anything. I think one needs somewhere respect of that individuality that has created that content.
What about you, Ananth?
DRM is important.
Okay.
At the moment, DRM is important. Like you're saying, unless you don't define the rules of the game, you can't popularize the game. If you break it right away, then it'll become a free-for-all. So I think DRM, at the stage in which a geography has to be developed towards a new format of product and content, is very important. It's a framework.
Okay. Now, given the fact that books are under DRM right now, how much of an impact is there of piracy that you see for your ebooks? Do you find your ebooks being pirated? Can you?
Yeah. I mean, there are PDFs floating around of everything under the sun. I was talking to an IIT professor the other day whom we publish, and he said, I said, oh good, so you're an IIT prof and there's all of these IITs in India and all of these students who will buy your book. He said not one single IIT student ever buys a book. They know exactly how to get PDFs free for anything they want.
These professors circulate, by the way. They circulate. They don't go to Pearsons of the world and say, can you make me a customized digital product, cheap? I have 1,200 students, 3 years running, give me a good rate, I want them to come. They don't do that. They go buy a 399 rupee book at 40% discount from them, send it to a 1 rupee a page Xerox, and donate it free themselves. I've been in management classes myself, where our own books came to me free. And I'm like, what's happening here? So it's a malaise. I
So
don't think.
DRM is
But
also
going back to
something
digital
slightly
piracy,
notional.
e-books don't get pirated. So the pirated version of what people think as e-books, right in the beginning, is that they can get a PDF.
The scanned copies, you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
E-books don't get pirated. It is impossible to pirate an e-book.
Would you agree, Srini?
Yeah, completely. I mean, Manas would know. I mean, and people who are following news in Delhi, there was this recent case in Delhi University where within the university campus, you had this photocopying going on. And, if anybody is from Bangalore, the Malleshwaram Xerox is so famous. All of these, every city has its own hub. Student Xerox chain in Chennai. So, I mean, you can go on naming and, you don't need to tell the students. They know where to get all of this.
He's starting a big case. As
Yeah.
Somebody in the industry who's taken it upon himself.
I started it.
Whatever. Fine. To say that Xeroxing is wrong. This is going on. I hope we win it.
Yeah.
Not because publishers want to make money, but the other side is actually wrong. You cannot support, for lack of a better word, criminal activity. You can't copy.
But is this a losing battle? In the sense that you can win a case, but then ultimately technology allows you to do
people find
certain
alternatives. So it's not like saying, so there's not going to be monopoly or anything like that. There will be an alternative discovered where, based on use and the price, a methodology can be found. But to start it, we have to fight the first thing.
Okay, I'm not in agreement with you on this case, but I will not say anything more. But I have to say this on record.
Fine. I'll take you out for a drink.
Okay.
Okay, I think I'll open it up for questions, and maybe we'll go to Manas for the first question. So,
Okay. Am I asking questions or am I answering the IRRO? I will have a fight with you on IRRO because there is an organization called the Indian Reprographic Rights Organization. It's a nascent one, but it is building up, and that licenses photocopying. So for every single photocopy, you should get a little bit. Just as happens in the UK, in the CLA, the Copyright Licensing Agency, whichever university you go to, if you copyright one single page, as one or two pence is given into the CLA, which then pays the publisher, half to the publisher, half to the author. Similarly, in the US, there's the copyright CCC, it's called Copyright Control Center. Anyway, that's that. No, that wasn't my question. I was answering his comment on that. You want me to start off on questions? How many do? Well, okay, right. One question. Well, the question I have for him is very bullish on subscriptions, but what will publishers do about royalty in a subscription model?
no, I think he has to now tell us what would be the case he would make to publishers to persuade them to get onto a subscription platform.
The only reason why the industry has ever changed any established practice is because it helps us build the market, right? Grow the market. So my persuasion pitch would be exactly the same. That subscription model will create a new set of customers who would otherwise not consume ebooks, right? So that is additional royalty. That pie is a new pie. It's not an existing pie.
The money can come to the publisher, but on what basis do you give to the authors?
It is not a working model. So when we wanted to say, before we made a decision to say we will not join subscription, at least for India, we did a test case. So we said if students in India don't buy every prescribed book because they photocopy and so on, if we were to create a subscription model for the prescribed texts from a trade publisher, let's say classics. So the guy enters at a say $9.99 or $5.99 fee, and then he has a model where he says, I'm an MA English in this university. The system will list the books that are prescribed there, and he gets to access them for a period of time. It could be an e-book or whatever it is. So there we said if we want to pay somebody for those books, there's an enlisting fee, like it's like a advance on contract. So an author gets a certain fee, which is a nominal fee, to allow us to list his book there. Then there's a subscription fee, which you can't actually separate because it's a very small number. Every time his or her book is used, then there is a certain fee that goes based on consumption. So he gets an enlisting fee and a post-consumption percentage of the revenue. But we looked at all of it and then went back to our existing problem. Books are hand-me-downs. It takes too long and too expensive to build a model that will, even if you focus it only to the student base, where we know even now that less than 1% of students actually buy the book. Even the highest selling textbook does not reach every student who's studying the subject. But it just is not. It's just too work intensive, too cost intensive to sort of commercially monetize the model and make sure all players get paid. There is us, there is technology partner, there is the royalty, there is retailer. It won't work. The business will not be that large that everybody will be happy 3 years down the line.
Can I have your permission to make one comment?
Let him just finish what he's saying, and then we'll come back to that for a minute. Okay.
I mean, from a textbook perspective, for us, we've dabbled with subscriptions for quite a long time. We have the Safari books online. We practically own a big part of CoSmart, which we recently sold to Ingram. There are various models in which we've dabbled, just as an investor to books. Thumb rule, it's yet another channel. The perception that, subscription model is suddenly going to make some big change. Reality is it doesn't work that way. Having said that, to respond to your query in terms of managing royalty, I can on a one-on-one share the algorithm that we use, say, on a Safari. So there are workarounds. The thing is that you need your backend systems to be able to manage a lot of this. So it's page views as a percentage of price point, how many people put it on their shelf. So it's a complex algorithm, but this has proven, and you have more than 100,000 publishers listed on that running on subscription models. So the models exist and it's not new. But the perception that suddenly it's going to change the game here, I think that's a fallacy, number one. And secondly, you were right in pointing out of the fact that it needs to be modeled to an Indian context. Take, for example, this subscription business in the US. Why it works there is typically for an undergraduate course, people buy only one textbook for their 4-year program. All the other books are sort of ancillary texts and also reads. That's not how we do it here, right? Second, consumption pattern. How much time does a typical student in India invest in reading is no more than 2 weeks. Now, what is the model will you apply to that? Because the price that we extract for that full book, is for that 2-week period, literally. It's a little different in a school environment where, they ask them to bring it and then do the assessments and exercises and fill in the blanks. But, in a higher education context, it's very different. So you need to study the lay of the land and figure out, what will work and what won't work.
You had one quick.
Just to say that there are now quite a large number of consortiums. The biggest consortium is the InflibNet, where about 150 universities are getting an enormous amount of journal and e-content. And so you have a huge cohort of students who are used to using e coming up. So you need to cater to them.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, the lady over there. Just mic, just use the mic. And if the question is for somebody, just point out who it is for.
Anybody can answer. Do you think ebooks would result in more indiscriminate publishing? I'm saying that as a consumer and a retailer of p-books. There's a lot of rubbish out there being printed. I'm just wondering, because of the maybe the cost as well as technology, the ease of technology.
Just a quick comment on that is that there may be a lot of rubbish out there, but you don't have to consume it. So if publishers are putting out stuff you don't want, you are absolutely free to not go anywhere near there. So it's a matter of choice. There are people who consume what you call rubbish and feel that there's something in it for them. There will be that as well. And I don't think it's going to change because the costs are going to go down, because editorial costs remain, design costs remain, technology costs will be high, dissemination costs will be not only high enough, but also full of trying to do R&D to support it. So there is going to be a lot of cost, and it's going to be what survives is still going to be the good book, or the book that needs and deserves to be read.
But the self-publishing world allows for a lot more to be published, which is sort of uneditorially managed. Non-curated content is a lot on the net. Self-publishing companies say exactly that we're not going to offer you any editorial work, but they will package beautifully, give you a nice cover and put it up, so you can get anything published. And they did not necessarily be, in the Penguin self-published side, the first few books that came were books that grandchildren and children wrote for their grandparents. Family memoirs, photographs that got together, travel stuff. So there is a good part of self-publishing, but like she says, it's choice. You can consume it or you needn't.
Are you sure that e-books can be pirated unless it is PDF? Recently I've seen someone reading Thomas Piketty's book in Kindle, pirated, downloaded from...
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, for somebody to simply type the whole thing up again and make an ebook of it.
It is downloaded from Pirate Bay.
Yeah.
And every contemporary book is available.
Yeah, it's available.
As far as we understand, EPUBs are not possible to be, at least the EPUBs that are DRM protected are not possible to be.
It is available.
No.
I read it.
No, the question is, what he's saying is, there is an EPUB file available on eBay. It doesn't mean that a DRM protected EPUB has been cracked.
So the other possibility is that it would have been a PDF file which someone can convert to an EPUB. Yeah, that is possible.
So
that is possible, yes.
No, I don't know that technology. It is downloaded from Pirate Bay, and every new contemporary book is available in Pirate Bay.
Absolutely.
And children are downloading.
Yeah,
and it is not PDF.
Yeah, it's not PDF.
And it is read in Kindle and
So every book today is practically available for sure. If not available, it can be made available without much of a problem. So that's the reality that publishers have to live with.
So that is the reality. It is not that it is not going to be any different experience.
Absolutely.
So then what is the future? It is going to be pirated like anything.
See, the thing is,
you have to answer that question for me, Ruben.
Yeah.
You're consuming pirated content.
Mm-hmm.
You are deteriorating the future.
No,
he read the book, he said.
No, I read the book in someone else.
So fair enough. So you're a partner to crime, so to speak.
Oh, I bought 3 hard copies from here.
No, my point is this. No, let's not. We should be very, very clear. This is the all of us are publishers. Okay, copyright is sacrosanct.
No.
Let me finish. We didn't write the book. If I wrote a book and I will put it out there. As a publisher, we have to protect copyright. It is tantamount to us deteriorating the business if we stand there and say these things happen, piracy happen. We are not saying we are going to protect piracy. We are saying we will deliver good content. But to go back to the piracy question first, there are organizations in the world which come at a fee. Publishers can list their ISBNs on that platform. Digital arms go out there and look for pirated editions everywhere. It happens all the time for us. The hit rate is as high as 89-90%. They will send out a pull down notice, which is legal. And we know organizations have pulled down PDF or illegal editions of our books. Imagine the Penguin Random House world. Somebody doesn't like the size of us. But the number of titles out there, we regularly score the net to make sure only legal versions of our authors' books are on sale. Again, we are just content curators and resellers. And copyright is very, very important. I know most of us might go back home and download Game of Thrones or watch pirated DVDs.
That's a HarperCollins, you can't do that.
But the consumer is who is deteriorating the future. We have not taken any promise that we'll protect the future of publishing, by the way. We're going to protect the interests of our company and the interests of our authors so that we can publish more authors and publish them at the right price for a consumer to enjoy them. At the heart of it, we sell stories.
No, but my question is not that. You are saying that it is not available. It is available.
No, that is an argument. We can have it all the time. Yeah. So much is pirated. I'm simply saying if you consume it, you've already deteriorated the future.
I think if the physical book is not available and only the EPUB file, the first one is uploaded, so there's no question of P-book which can be scanned and then it can be uploaded as an e-book. If it is only e-book, I'm sure that it would not be pirated, as you see. Yeah.
The
first search result is 3 methods for removing DRM. Just go for the word. Can you crack DRM?
Do we want to have a positive conversation?
No, the
Point going on here. You all on the DS make the point that EPUB cannot be cracked. It can be cracked.
Yeah, see, anything can be cracked today. There is no doubt that technology is available to crack anything, including Kindle's DRM. Okay, so nothing is.
I think this is the reason why Satya raised the question on should DRM be there at all, right? But the fact is, irrespective of the privacy which is there, whether it be in digital books or print books, which by the way is also equally pirated, right? Whether it be print books or e-books, both have the pirated versions. But there is a market out there who respects copyrights and who buys paid books, which is why e-books, the paid e-books market is what we talked about as something which is growing. And the fact is, both the paid e-books market and the paid print books market are both growing year on year. So, which is a very healthy sign.
Yeah, but one of the things that probably drive piracy, in a sense, is that in the old world, there used to be carving of territories. So, books used to be published in different territories at different times. Today, a book is published in one territory, and everybody everywhere in the world gets to know about it and gets to hear about reviews and gets to hear about how great it is. They want to read it in other territories, but it's not due for the next 9 months. So then piracy is something that people may resort to because they are very keen to read the book, but somebody else for some other reasons does not want to publish the book in their territory. So that happens probably. But there's also one more dynamic at play, which is that, suppose there's a very big fan of your book. You've written a book, Ananth. So somebody who's so thrilled with your book that he or she simply wants to share it with the rest of the world. So they make a copy of it and put it up. You would hate it, but then, they're actually your most fanatic reader. Okay? So how do you even have a conversation with them saying don't do it? When,
Go back, this is e-piracy, right? Go back to print piracy. The print piracy and the way we fight print piracy in India is so archaic. The government does not, just to illustrate an example. So I know a prize-winning author who said, I don't mind if my books are pirated because it's available free and at a cheaper price to my readers. So as somebody who's created something, I would hate it, not because I want to get paid for it, but that it is illegal, that you would actually think that it is easy to replicate. Again, we're all talking about it because books are so easy to be sort of, abused in this manner. You can't replicate
but
a phone.
Ananth, for the longest time, people have also lent and borrowed books, physical books,
Well,
and people have read them quite legitimately. You pass it on.
No, let's not. I don't want to confuse readership and consumption to
piracy is a different thing.
commercial sale of a product.
But I'm saying on an e-book format, we're not even allowing that, right? We're holding on.
So
and
what
saying
Amazon
one or
tells
two
you,
or
what
three,
Amazon tells you
that's
is
it.
you can share your
3 times, maybe 6 times.
It's gone up to 6.
But think about what it is when you have a popular book and you have students reading it. It just goes round and round and round. And we never thought about it as something that was problematic. It was a sharing. So now we're also limiting ourselves completely to these rules because I don't think it'll work like that. I think Pirate Buy will continue to exist.
Rules are
and
important.
flourish.
Flipkart won't exist. Let
Why?
him answer that question. He won't have anybody to sell to. Everybody's pirating each other. Yeah?
No, I absolutely agree, right? The fact that we are growing is because people are respecting their copyrights, right? Now, to answer your question, there will still be a market who would want to, let's say, a market where there is a group of students who want to share a book, for which we will need to come up with the right models, which is where probably those innovative models we talked about, either in terms of subscription or library. So you bring up the right models which can cater to each segment of the market, that will expand the market while making sure that each of them get the experience they seek.
The problem is we want everything bloody free. It starts there. All of today also, I'm not saying that. All of today, we've had a lot, the undertones are price. How much is your HP Indigo? How much is illustrated? Why are illustrated books more expensive? Why are graphic novels so expensive? What is wrong with people? A weekend at the mall costs 2,000 rupees.
Me or any of us. There's a bigger market out there where price is a problem. And we should.
No, it's not us.
I don't think we can speak
we
about
publish
it
for
as one unit.
No. I'm not arguing. I'm simply saying this. All of us generate content from a 0 to 100 age group. We generate content in the hope that it is going to get to a certain demographic. When we price a product, it's not out of the air. When they discount, it's not out of the air. There's an algorithm that says that this is the average mean price for a book so they can sell to most number of people. Retailers today know more about pricing than we do when we put an MRP on a book, because we just want to charge a little more. We don't have a mathematical way of saying is $6.99 better or $5.99 better. But when retailers run an algorithm, say today average mean price is $2.40, if I drop it, I can increase my consumption. That is scientific and mathematical. So it's not like saying that making it cheap will suddenly make 100,000 more people buy a book. They don't. We know that from the past. They won't. But everything has a price. This damn phone costs 50,000 rupees. They sell 70 million at an average price of 12,000 rupees in this country. A movie ticket costs 600.
Then why drop classics to zilch price?
Classics
Why?
got competed by out of copyright classics. Then came student subscription because they became prescribed text. Then came
So why put a price on Charles Dickens who's out of copyright?
He's out of copyright.
Yes, but books are printed and there's a price
because
put on them.
The customer can
buy
paper
printing.
Yeah, customer can buy it free, or can buy a Penguin Classic with annotation, or can buy a leather. So we add premium. We add annotations. We add leather bound. We add gift editions. We saying the type is great. This is the original transcript. So we add value to it. He can of course buy it free. We are not forcing anybody to buy our product.
No, I get that. I'm just saying that I don't think it is a case of price not mattering. In our market, price matters. You hate price, that's why.
Any other questions?
Does Flipkart have plans to roll out language books in e-format?
Yes, we do. So as I said, our initial focus was on English books. So now we have started diversifying our focus, and we already have a collection of Hindi language books. We are also approaching other language publishers to roll out other regional languages very soon. Yes.
I guess if there were some smaller players, you would have heard a different story from that side, particularly of the struggle of going into EPUB and things like that. And also, the politics of this full technology. What does it mean for access, say for smaller language groups, for smaller markets? It's not the same size. This doesn't fit all. It's not accessible to all. There are politics of technology, of size, of all these things coming in. I'd also be interested to hear about the experiences of non-mainstream models. Like, we are using free software to create EPUBs and things like that. And there are some amazing tools out there. I was surprised to hear yesterday at the cartoon workshop that the cartoons don't size up to your shrinkable devices. I don't know if I've understood something wrong, but we are doing it with...
No, there is software to create ebooks, free software to create books. Okay, that's something that's existed always. Now, that has nothing to do with the priced books being made available for sale, I guess, right?
No. Yesterday the point was that your cartoons have a bit of a problem in displaying on small screens.
Mm-hmm.
Not cartoons, you're talking about
graphics.
Yeah.
I'm not facing that problem. I don't know if I've understood it wrongly.
No, it's a matter of how they created that book. If somebody didn't create the book properly, you may have a problem. So
there are free software tools which are doing it.
Yes, but somebody may not have done a good job of it, that's all, for that particular book that you have. It's possible to create a perfectly viewable cartoon book, a comic book for devices.
And one small question to Flipkart, what are your terms and conditions? Because do you all block the same ebook going out to other players in the market for a limited period of time or for some lengthy period of time, or what?
The commercial terms, of course, varies from relationship to relationship. So that's something we can discuss offline. But the second part of the question I didn't understand. If you can just repeat.
He's asking about exclusivity. Do you insist on saying, if you're giving it to Flipkart, don't give it to anybody else?
No, we don't. In fact, we also have a option where we look at distributing your ebooks internationally if you require assistance in that regard, because we have relationships with other international aggregators and platforms. While we sell only in India, if you are coming exclusively with us, we give you the option to distribute internationally, but otherwise we don't insist on exclusivity for Indian market.
No, but your requirement would be that we digitize through you, right? We digitize the
We don't have any such requirement. Okay. If you need us to help you out with that, we'll give you the service. We'll help you with the service.
Okay. So the books can be put on and taken off at any time?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
This is slightly off the thing, but I just want to say that for us in Hindi publishing, for instance, we also publish in Hindi. This whole ebook thing has been quite an awakening, because we're actually doing and beginning to do a lot more numbers than we had imagined would happen on it. And also the entire diaspora that is out there willing to read and wanting to read in the languages. It's a whole new world which we just could not do with our physical books, because the distribution system is so different in Hindi. We don't even understand it in a way. There's lots of issues there. But suddenly the ebook has allowed us to think we can reach out to fans. Like we publish a writer called Ibn Safi, who's a classic writer. But on the website and so on, where people talk about him and where ebooks are available on different platforms, we're not the only ones who publish them. Huge numbers coming from all over the world. So this is something that we are very excited about as a future thing.
Yeah, I think ebooks could work very well for poetry.
Yes, I really hope in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you would even worry about piracy there. So,
I just want to go back to sir, if you can, 1 minute. You had mentioned small publisher problems and large publisher don't have problems, kind of thing. I want to go there. I don't want to go there. I'm just saying this. What small publishers can do is, like in the UK, there's Constellation, which Faber runs. Faber runs something called Faber Factory. They go to individual small UK publishers, and you can imagine how many there are in the UK. They do conversion. They take the trouble of negotiating with large players. They become the aggregator, so to speak. And what large publishers help to, which is positive, one of the things we do positively, is set the standards so everybody can get impacted actually. We impact about in a lot of ways. So Indian publishers are quite free. It's just that we don't like to work with each other. We like to crib in forums like these. But we can work together, get all our catalog over one place, set ebook standards, go speak to the Flipkarts of the world and say, here are 500 Indian publishers.